You know, he built the single largest monument in human history. It's an icon of ancient power that's been standing for over 4,500 years. But the man himself, Pharaoh Khufu, he's practically a ghost. This isn't just some story about a long-dead king. No, this is about how history gets written and how a reputation can be built from solid stone or completely torn down by whispers. So let's dive into this amazing historical mystery. And this, right here, really gets to the heart of the whole puzzle. On one hand, you have the Great Pyramid of Giza. I mean, it's this nearly 500-foot-tall masterpiece of engineering. And on the other, the only complete confirmed statue we have of the guy is this tiny 3-inch ivory figurine. So, how do you square that? How does the man who built this giant thing leave behind such a small, personal trace?
To find the real Khufu, the man, not the myth, we've got to look at the evidence from his own time. We have to piece together the facts that he actually left behind for us in stone and, as we'll see, on papyrus.
Okay, let's start with his name, Khnum Khufu. It means Khnum protects me. Now, Khnum was the ram-headed god of creation, the one who is said to have literally fashioned humanity on a potter's wheel. So by tying his name to this god, Khufu was making a huge statement. He wasn't just a king. He was basically positioning himself as a divine creator here on Earth.
For the longest time, the details of Khufu's reign were pretty murky. We knew he was the second pharaoh of the super powerful Fourth Dynasty, but that was kind of it. Then, we found the Diary of Merer. This thing is a game changer. It's a logbook from the 27th year of his reign, the oldest papyrus ever discovered, and it gives us a direct, play-by-play of limestone being shipped for the pyramid. This diary, along with other inscriptions, tells us he ruled for at least 27, maybe 29 years, which is definitely enough time to build his masterpiece.
And you know, Khufu was way more than just a pyramid builder. The evidence shows he was an incredibly effective ruler. He was organizing these massive mining expeditions into the Sinai for valuable stuff like turquoise and copper. He was trading with the city of Byblos to get those huge cedar logs he needed for his ceremonial boats. And get this, he founded the world's oldest known artificial harbor on the Red Sea, a major hub for trade. This was a king running a seriously complex and powerful kingdom.
But then, fast forward 2,000 years after Khufu died, and a completely different story starts to pop up. This is the myth of Khufu, the one passed down to us by Greek historians. And let me tell you, it painted a very, very dark picture.
So the Greek historian Herodotus, who was writing way later in the 5th century BC, he throws out the first big accusation. He claims Khufu was basically a heretic who just shut down Egypt's entire religious life, closed every temple, forbade all the sacrifices.
And then comes the charge of tyranny. Herodotus wrote that Khufu enslaved his entire population, forcing 100,000 men at a time into just brutal, relentless labor. This, right here, is where that whole myth that the pyramids were built by slaves comes from.
And just when you think it can't get any worse, Herodotus delivers the most shocking, personal blow. He tells this story that Khufu, desperate for cash, forced his own daughter into prostitution. And that, right there, that completed the character assassination. It cemented Khufu's reputation as one of history's great villains.
So is that the real story? Was Khufu really this godless tyrant who enslaved his own people and sold his daughter? Well, let's go back to the Egyptian evidence and see if any of this actually holds up. Okay, look at this. This single number is a really powerful counterargument. Archaeologists have identified at least 67 mortuary priests whose entire job was to maintain the religious cult of King Khufu. And they weren't just doing this right after he died. This went on for hundreds of years. So you have to ask yourself, why would a hated king be worshipped as a god for centuries? It doesn't make sense. I mean, when you put the two versions side by side, the contradictions are just glaring. Herodotus says he was a cruel tyrant, closed the temples, was hated by everyone. But the actual Egyptian evidence shows he was worshipped in this big mortuary cult for over 200 years, and even had entire towns named in his honor. The two stories just don't line up at all.
So why the huge difference? Well, most modern Egyptologists believe Herodotus wasn't recording history the way we think of it. He was a storyteller, and he was writing 2 full millennia after Khufu was alive. He was probably just reporting folktales and the cultural biases of his own time, a time when a colossal king-focused monument like the Great Pyramid might have seemed like the ultimate act of arrogant tyranny.
So all of this leaves Khufu with this kind of split legacy.
Right, his reputation is caught between the monumental stone he actually built and these slanderous stories that were told about him thousands of years later. And that brings us right back to the Diary of Mira. See, this logbook doesn't describe the work of slaves at all. It's the account of an official, a guy named Mur, managing a team of skilled workers. They're delivering stones to a place they called Khufu, the horizon of Khufu. It paints a picture of a highly organized, state-funded, national project, not slave-driven chaos.
So in the end, we're really left with two different Khufus. You have the historical man, a powerful, capable pharaoh who mastered logistics and brought together the resources of his entire kingdom for one single, breathtaking purpose. And then you have the myth, the cruel tyrant invented 2,000 years later, a legend that has unfairly shadowed his name ever since.
Which, leads us to the final question. Is history what actually happened, or is it just the story that manages to survive? With a figure as massive and as mysterious as Khufu, that line between the man and the myth, well, it might just stay blurry forever, leaving us to wonder whose version of the past we choose to build our own understanding on.